Hey, what is up? Welcome to another tutorial. In this video, we'll take a look at another instrument called stereo. And as with any instrument we want to use with RTcmix, we have to use the load function and type the name of the instrument as a string. So in contrast with wavetable, stereo does not synthesize sound from scratch. And instead what it does is it reads through a pre-existing sound file of our choosing. And that alone changes the way we have to specify its argument. So if we were to type stereo open parentheses and say 005110, if we go through each argument, we'll find out why it is different. So as you might imagine, the first one is the start time. This second one is called the inskip time, and by inskip I mean where in the file stereo it's going to start reading from. So in this case we have 0, so it's going to start from the beginning of the file. If it was 1, it would start 1 second into the file, and so on. The third argument is the duration, so in this case it's 5 seconds long. The fourth argument is the amplitude, and we have amplitude equals 1. And so here you might be asking, why would I specify 1 as amplitude if we have established that the amplitude range was this weird span between minus 32768 and 32767, right? Like this would be essentially silence. But the thing is, whenever you're dealing with instruments that process pre-existing audio, meaning instruments that do not synthesize sound, the amplitude specification changes and everything is normalized to floating point values between -1 and 1. And the more you deviate from 0, the louder it is. And so in this case, 1 would be the original amplitude of the sound file we're playing. So that's something you should keep in mind, because sometimes you'll forget and give it a really high amplitude value, and that will blow up your ears, and that's never a good thing to experience. So just watch out for those things. Now the last two arguments are the panning values for each channel. And so we have, let's say ch1 pan equals 1 and ch2 pan equals 0. And remember, in RTcmix things are a little backwards, so this left channel would be 1, because 1 is left and 0 is right, and 0.5 is the middle. So essentially the position of each panning value determines which channel is being affected. Now that we've covered what each of the arguments stand for, we have to figure out how to specify which sound we want to read with stereo. So with the way we do that is with the RTinput function, and the RTinput function takes the path name of the file written as the path name of the file written as a string. So I could do something like this, say sample1, and if you don't know how to what the path name of your file is, you can go to Finder and you can go to the folder of where the sound file is. Then you need to make sure that this shows up. So in order to do that, you press Option Command P. So you see that this thing shows up, and then you select the file and you right click and select Copy as Path Name, and then you go to your text editor and you paste this inside the quotation marks, and if you run the script, that should be ready.
Somewhere over the rainbow.
Great. So now that this is working, we can go ahead and start doing some interesting things, and what we're going to do today is do some granulation. So for those who do not know what granulation is, the basic idea is to take an audio signal and splicing it into very, very small snippets or chunks, which are referred to as grains, and rearrange them in such a way that they can produce a variety of sound textures. So we can type a for loop. So let's say st equals 0, st less than a variable called total dot dur, which is total duration dot dur. We assign it the value above, so let's say 10 seconds, and then st plus equals a variable called rate, and I'm going to define rate in here, so 0.05. We close braces, and I'm going to move all these value assignments above stereo, so I can get rid of this one because it's already here. Then I can say nskip equals start time, so I'm gonna match those two variables, then say that the duration is 0.05, so very short, that the amplitude is 1 still, and the channel 1 is 1 and channel 2 is 0, and those are the panning values. And just make sure you don't leave these value assignments inside stereo. And as a last thing, I'm going to include an envelope with make table, say line, table size 1000, 0, 1, 1, 2, 1, and 3, 0. So we have an envelope, and we multiply it by amplitude. So let's go over, what envelope? So let's go over what we just typed. So we have a for loop where the st variable representing the start time of stereo will be the counter variable, and as long as the start time is less than the value inside this variable, which in this case is 10 seconds, the loop will continue running, meaning the loop will play at a new grain, and every time a new grain is played, we are going to add the value inside rate to the start time. So that's going to make sure that every grain is not going to be played at the exact same time. And we of course have the nskip, which will move along with the start time. And then we have all these variables that we've dealt with before, and we have our envelope, which will be applied to each of the grains. And so now that we've covered this, we can go ahead and play it.
Somewhere over the rainbow, there's another.
Great. And so right now it's resembling more of a tremolo effect. But as with our previous tutorial, we can make things a little bit more interesting by injecting some randomness into the equation. So instead of saying, for instance, that an amplitude equals 1 every time, we can say random amplitude between 0 and 1, random panning for both channels between 0 and 1, and with duration we can use iran to specify a range. So let's say 0.01 and 0.1, and with rate similarly for iran 0.001, so even faster, and 0.1. And with nskip, pay attention to this because I'm going to use iran. So I'm going to say 0, between 0 and going to type in all caps dur and open parentheses. And so this right here is some sort of variable or constant. I'm not sure how to call it, but it's a special function in RTcmix that in this case dur, what it does is it represents the total duration of whatever sound file we're using. So this guarantees that if, for example, we decide to use a different sound file, this will adjust to whatever the total duration of this file is. And so randomizing between 0 and the total duration will guarantee that stereo will not try to go past the duration of the sound file, and we will not get this error message that we got here saying attempt to read past end of input. And so having done that, we can play this and we'll get some granulation going. Awesome. Now, of course, we can also modify the envelope so that we can say that it's a little bit sharper and have a longer decay. And we could also try a different sound file. So instead of using this one, I'm going to select this one, which I have in my desktop. So if we listen to this, this is clarinet sample, and I'm going to multiply it by let's say 1.5 to make it a little louder, and I'm going to make the rate a little bit faster too, and let's hear it. Yeah, so there you have it, some granulation with RTcmix. So again, I encourage you to play around with this one. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, and I hope to see you all in the next tutorial. Thanks for watching.